Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel Coding Care. So today's session is going to be completely hands-on, and in this video I'll create a small application, a real-time application. So where we can implement our Kafka producer and consumer. If you have not seen my all the video of my Kafka series, then please go through the ones and you can get all the theory knowledge from this video. So in this video I'll cover all the producer and consumer setup, topic creation, how we can send the message, or how we can do the real-time message processing, and much more. Okay, so please subscribe my channel and share it. So all the code available in my repo, I have given the link in my description, so feel free to clone my repo, and by end of this video we'll have a completely working Kafka project that you can use a reference on your own application. So let's get started without delay. So here I'll take one small use case where you can implement in your application. For example, assume that I am creating one e-commerce based application. So e-commerce based application, what we can do, suppose this is my e-commerce based application. Okay, e-commerce based application. So here suppose I am purchasing something, then what I'll do, I'll select my required product and add to cart, then I'll buy through my debit card or credit card or UPI. Then once the transaction successful, then we can get the order tracking information, right? So here what I will do, once the transaction will complete, all the transaction information log I'll send to the Kafka, so that the other application can receives or consumes my log. Okay, transaction related log. So here this is an e-commerce site I am creating, and here what I'll do, I'll doing some transaction here. Okay, once the transaction successful, so this is my Kafka topic. Let's say this is my topic, and once the transaction will successful, I'll produce the message to the Kafka topic, and different application will receives. So this is a consumer application. Okay, this consumer application will read or receives the data from the Kafka topic. So this is the basic thing we can implement now. So what I will do, I'll create one Spring Boot application. Okay, a new project. So this is transaction producer app. Okay, this is transaction producer app. So transaction details it will produce Maven project, then next. Now I'll add Spring Boot Spring Web, then Kafka. I have to have this Spring for Apache Kafka. Then I'm using Lombok. Okay, Lombok. Let's create the application. Yeah, now my application is ready. So here I'll create different package. So this is controller package. In controller package I'll create a controller class. Let's say transaction controller. Okay, so here I'll add annotation REST controller. Okay, then I'll create one method, public string create order. Okay, create order. So inside create order, what I'll do, I'll read the order information as well as the payment information, and I'll write the business logic. Once the transaction will successful, then the same transaction object I'll convert it to string and I'll pass to, or I'll produce to the Kafka topic. So here what I'll do, read card details and payment info. Okay, then write business logic for doing transaction. Okay, once the transaction successful, if transaction successful, then what I'll do, I'll convert this object, I mean transaction object, okay, into JSON. Then I will send this JSON, okay, or I'll produce this JSON into Kafka topic. But question is here, we have to read the card details, then payment information, then writing business logic, then we'll do some transaction, okay. So instead of doing all these stuffs, let's focus on Kafka thing, okay. Instead of doing all these stuffs, directly I'll send the transaction information through the postman, okay. So I have already the transaction JSON, this is the transaction JSON. I'll pass this one, let's create a different, okay, let's new HTTP request, this is post request body, okay, JSON. Let's send this transaction details directly, okay. Instead of writing business logic and creating the transaction object, let's send this transaction information directly, okay, because we are focusing on Kafka, not the business logic here, okay. So here we need to create the transaction object, an entity class, transaction object. Now let's copy these things, okay. So transaction ID, string private, string transaction ID, okay, private string from account, from we just copy paste from account, okay, okay, to account, then amount is double, okay. Now timestamp, let's timestamp is local data, now transaction type, now currency status. We have a transaction entity class ready. Let's create getter and setter. We are using annotation data because we are using Lombok, at the rate all are constructor, at the rate no are constructor, okay. Entity class ready. Now I'll receive the transaction object. I'll use at the rate request body, okay, transaction. Now I can read this transaction object directly. After reading the transaction, what I'll do, I'll convert this into JSON, okay. How I'll convert to JSON, I can use the object mapper here. So let's create the object mapper here, object mapper, okay. Object mapper, instead of creating object like this, okay, let's say this is private final object mapper, okay. Why it is giving error, not be initialized, okay. We can initialize here, we can do through the constructor injection, we can create the object for this object mapper. So transaction controller, okay. So here I can use that object mapper, this dot object mapper, okay. Through the constructor injection I am creating the object of this object mapper. Now here using object mapper, okay, dot write value as string, then we can pass this object transaction object here, and once, so it then it will return the JSON data, right, string, it will return a string, okay. So it will return a string, okay, transaction info or transaction log, okay, transaction log. Now what I'll do here, this transaction information, okay. For example, let's our transaction is successfully, okay. Once the successfully, this transaction object will create, okay. For now I am reading this transaction object from postman, but actually this transaction will object will create after business logic will execute it, okay. So now this transaction object I converted to string, and this value or this string I'll pass or I'll send to this Kafka topic. So let's see how we can send the message to the topic. So first of all, what we can do, we have to configure the Kafka related things, okay. Where the Kafka is running, which port number it is running, what is the host, all these things we have to configure. So let's create one Java class Kafka config. Okay, so first of all, we have not created the topic yet. Either you can create the topic through the command line or through the Java also we can create. So make it as @configuration class. Okay, so how we can create the topic? So here public new topic. Okay, this is that's a topic. So return new topic. Okay, so here we have to mention the topic name. Okay, so let's say that topic name is transaction producer topic. Okay, and how many partition you want? Suppose I want 3 partition, and this one is nothing but replication factor. Okay, so make it as bin. Now what I'll do, I'll configure the Kafka related information. So whatever will send the data. Okay, for example, in JDBC, how you are sending our data to the database, we have to create the connection object. Through the connection object we are sending the data, right? So here also same kind of thing, we have to create the Kafka template. Through the Kafka template we can send the message. So how we can create the Kafka template? Public Kafka template, and this is key value pair we have to mention. So I'm using string Kafka template. Here return new Kafka template, and inside this constructor we have to pass the factory class. Okay, here we have to pass the factory. So inside this factory, I mean producer factory, so inside this factory we have to mention like where our Kafka is running, and what is the serialization we are using. Okay, so when we are sending the data, actually it is using serialization, and when we will consume the data we are using some deserialization. So we have to mention all these things. Okay, so here first of all we will create the object of factory. Okay, public, and producer factory. Yeah, this one, producer factory, and this is string producer factory. Now we'll create the map object, and here we have to set all the property here in map. Then I'll set all this information inside that map, and I'll pass this map to this factory class, and same factory I'll pass to Kafka template. So here config, okay, configs.put. So not this bootstrap server, instead of it have producer config. Okay, something is there, producer is this one, producer config dot so many property is there. So we have to use the server. So bootstrap server, yes, this one, bootstrap server config. That means our Kafka is running on localhost 9092. Okay, now config, yeah, dot put producer config dot key serializer. Okay, key serializer means when we will produce the message or produce the event, we have to mention like how our key will serialize and how our value also serialize. Okay, so I am mentioning my key will serialize as a string serializer. Okay, so make it as import, yes, Apache one, then value serializer. So instead of string serializer I am using JSON serializer. JSON, one second, JSON serializer, yes, this one. Okay, this is yes, Kafka one. Okay, dot class. Okay, now this property I'll pass to here. new default Kafka producer factory, and I'll pass this config to the this object. Now this one I'll pass here. Now make it as bin at the rate bin. This also make it as at the rate bin. So this property we can also configure in properties file, but here I have configured. Now all this Kafka related configuration is ready. So here I'll import this one. Okay, I'll import this Kafka template object in controller, and I'll send the message. How I can do here? Kafka template. Okay, Kafka template. Okay, here make it as string. Now make it as @autoadd. Okay, through the constructor injection also you can do, so it's better to pass in constructor injection. Okay, so here this dot Kafka template equal to Kafka template. So I am removing this part. Okay, sorry, only this one. Make it as private final. Okay, now Kafka template is ready. Here Kafka template dot send. So in send, what we need to pass? We have to pass the topic name here. So let's say topic name is, make it as here string topic name. Okay, what is the topic name we have configured here? Topic name is transaction producer topic. Okay, same topic name we have to pass here. Make it as final. Okay, so here pass topic name comma this transaction log. Okay, now return, instead of transaction log return transaction log successfully sent to topic, this topic name. Now let's run this application. Yes, now the transaction. Okay, now application is running, but thing is admin client, okay, localhost could not be established, so node may not be available, so we have to run the Zookeeper. Okay, so I have already installed in my system. So yeah, this is the thing. So you have to install this Kafka. Okay, so Kafka zip you can install, then you can unzip here. So here I just open the terminal and copy the path. Okay, cd, I'll go to this particular path, and first I'll run the Zookeeper. So for running the Zookeeper I have already this command. So all this command I have already given in my description. Okay, so here just paste it. Okay, now Zookeeper started. Now one more terminal I'll open, and here I'll run the Kafka server. So this is the command. Okay, okay, now Kafka has started. Okay, so if you'll go here, okay, see started transaction producer application. Now there is no exception. So I'll go to the postman, and I've already these details, and I'll pass this one localhost instead of transaction. What I have given, oh my bad, this one we have to give @post mapping, and we have to pass, let's say, slash transaction. Okay, same thing we have to pass here. Okay, now send the request. See, transaction log successfully sent to topic. So now the successfully this transaction details goes to this topic. Okay, but check whether is already goes or not. So here create a new more tab, and for checking the message from the topic you can use this command. So this is the command, just paste it. Okay, we have to use the topic name. So what is our topic name? Our topic name is transaction producer topic. So here this is the topic we need to use. Copy this one and here paste it. Okay, see, this is the message we have sent. Now we will create one more application which is consumer application, and we will consume the same message. Okay, same message from this topic. But before consuming the message from this topic, if you see properly, okay, in Kafka config, while I creating this topic, I had mentioned partition 3. So when I send this message sent to partition 0. So there are 3 partition 0, 1, 2, but this message is going to partition 0. Okay, and this is nothing but key. If you have already watched my previous video, then you can understand what is event key and what is event value. This is event key and this is event value. So event key is null, but I want to pass the event value with event key. So here what we can do, we can pass the direct here. Here if I will mention some key tr-1. Okay, so this is my key. I just rerun my application and I'll send here. So if you check here, see, this is tr-1, this is key and this is value. Now this is goes to partition 2. Previous message go to partition 0. This message go to partition 0. But if you'll observe properly, we don't have control of the partition. Okay, I want like suppose we are passing the card type. Okay, sorry, transaction type. So there are different transaction type is there. Let's say this is a credit card, debit card, or UPI. Okay, so I want, if the transaction type is credit card, then it should goes to where? Partition 0. If the debit card is the transaction type, then it is goes to partition 1. Then if the UPI is the transaction type, then it will go to partition 2. Okay, this kind of logic I want to implement. So we have the control of our partition, right? So here we don't have the control of our partition. Any message is going to any partition. Okay, if I want to process something in order, what I will do? I have to pass the same partition. Okay, so how it is possible? So here what we will do, here I will create one class. Okay, here I will create the config class. Okay, let's say transaction type partitioner. Okay, so this class is implements from partitioner. Okay, yes, this one. Now override all the method. Okay, so in this method, this partition method, we have to write the logic. So this string s is nothing but our topic name, and this object 1 means this is a key. So when I'll pass the data, okay, I have to pass the key, right? So based on the key, I'll decide the partition number. If you have already watched my video, I have explained how the partition is calculated. Like it will hash of the key, then percentile by the partition number, right? So similarly, hash of the key. So this is nothing but key. So based on the key, we have to pass the key. Okay, based on the key, it will calculate the partition. So here what I will do, instead of return 0, okay, so here what I will do, suppose I will pass the transaction type as a key. Either UPI will come, or credit card will come, or debit card will come. Okay, this is the key, transaction type. So here I am using switch if key object. Okay, key object, then what will happen? So case 1, in case suppose UPI will come. Okay, if UPI will come, then I will return 1 percentile partition. How I will get the partition? From this cluster. Okay, from this cluster. Okay, so here cluster dot is partition count. Okay, for topic, partition count for topic, and we have to pass the topic here. Okay, instead of writing here, make it as local variable and this will return end partition. Okay, now this partition I will mention here. Okay, so 1 percentile partition means 1 percentile 3, so it will always return 1, right? 1 percentile partition will return 1. Now in the case of credit card, okay, credit card, in the case of credit card, okay, it will return 2 percentile partition, that means it will return 2. In the case of debit card, okay, I just copy paste debit card, it will return 0. So 3 percentile 3 is 0. Now default is return 0. Okay, why it is giving error? Incompatible type. Okay, so this key object I will convert it to string. Okay, here string key equal to string dot value of key object, then I will pass key here. Okay, so now this class is ready, but this class I have to register. Okay, so how I'll register this one? In this Kafka config, here we need to pass one more properties, config dot put producer config dot. So this is something key serializer, automatic batch buffer client, something partitioner. Okay, partitioner, yes, this one partitioner class config, and we have to pass the class name is transaction type partitioner dot class dot get name. Okay, now just rerun this application. Okay, one more thing I just forgot. So here we need to pass the key. Okay, instead of tr1 I have to pass the key as a this transaction type. So here I can do transaction dot get transaction type. Yeah, it started. Now I'll send UPI. Okay, send the request. Okay, if UPI is there, then if it's UPI, then it will go to the partition 1. Let's check. See, this is go to partition 1. Now I'll pass the credit card. Okay, so here I'll pass credit card. Let's check, it's partition 2. Now I'll check for debit card. Okay, now it's go to partition 0. For debit card it's 0. For default also it will go 0. Suppose, so I'll pass some net banking, send the request, it is go to 0. So in this way we can do partition and we can pass the message to the particular partition. Okay, now in the next video I'll create the consumer application, and in that application I'll show you how we can consume this message. Okay, so this is the real-time scenario we can use in Kafka. So please go through my previous video once, so that is all this theory, so easily you can crack in an interview. Okay, and if you liked my video, please share and subscribe. Thank you.